Hey guys, this is Whitney from the blog Tried and True Mom Jobs. And for those of you who know me, you know that I am like the queen of work from home jobs. And that is why I am so excited to talk about today's video because this one is in my top 5. Because I interviewed Danielle Pierce, who is a property preservation contractor. And get this, she makes over $400,000 per year as a stay at home mom, and she does all of this part time. She outsources 100% of the work and only does the admin work at home, and that is why this is in my top 5. So today, Danielle is going to give us a deep dive all about what property preservation is and how you can get started. And we also worked out a special deal for you guys, so be sure to watch until the very end. You guys ready? Let's get to it. Take it away, Danielle.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Danielle Pierce, your host for this property preservation masterclass. Essentially, what I'll be sharing with you guys over the next, let's say 90 minutes or so, is how you can establish a recession-proof real estate business in the little-known niche of property preservation. Inside of property preservation, you have the potential to earn multiple six figures in the real estate industry within 12 to 18 months or so, with no buying, no selling, no investing, no degree, no real estate license, and no experience required. And again, I'm your host, Danielle Pierce. So here's our breakdown for what we'll cover during this particular masterclass. We'll start with who is this presentation even for? Who isn't it for? Who is Danielle Pierce is what we'll cover next. Then we'll get into the specifics of property preservation in pretty line item detail. And we'll talk about why it may be superior to wholesaling, selling real estate, flipping, landlording, etc. We'll get into the next topic, which is how do you make money? From there, we'll transition into why have I never even heard about this property preservation industry? Then we'll talk about whether or not it's truly a recession-proof business. And just like if you guys don't know this about me already, I do believe that I can show you better than I can tell you. So I will support most of what we're saying with plenty of examples and real life testimonials, which you'll see very shortly. We'll talk about the income potential of being a property preservation vendor. We'll get into the specifics of what exactly is needed in order to get started as a property preservation vendor. Then we'll answer the $1 million question, which is, can I just do this myself? In a nutshell, yes, you can. I would never say that you can't, but we'll get into the pros and cons of DIY a little bit down the line. Then we'll head into some of our frequently asked questions. And then the last thing we'll cover is exactly how do you get started in the industry. All right. So please make sure you watch until the very end. There is a very special scholarship offer. It is exclusively for the folks in the Tried and True Mom Jobs community. It does not exist anywhere else outside of this platform. And that scholarship offer will be presented to you at the very end. So please stay tuned for that. So who is this presentation for? Let's talk about that for a second. So this presentation is going to be ideal for those folks who want to make money in the real estate industry without having to buy or sell real estate. Folks who are tired of exchanging hours for dollars, they want to make more money while doing less work. Of course, this will take some time to build up to this goal, but it is possible. This information is ideal for those who have tried various pathways in real estate, but they're tired of the endless hours, constant hustle, and taking unnecessary financial risk for what's often inconsistent money. This information is going to be great for those folks who are interested in learning about a recession-proof real estate niche and building a stable, multiple six-figure per year business that can allow them to eventually leave their 9 to 5. Notice I said eventually. That means you're not going to be able to do it today or 6 months from now. But if that's your goal, it's certainly a real possibility. And then if you fit this description, you are definitely in the right place. So stay tuned and prepare to have your mind blown. Now, with that being stated, let's talk about who this presentation is not for. All right. So it's not for course junkies. And, course junkies are those folks who, they see stuff online, the bright, shiny object. They see, people posting success stories and results. They're like, oh my gosh, I want to do that, which is great. And then 3 weeks later, when they see something else in their timeline or they hear about something else from a friend or family member, they're like, oh my gosh, that sounds great. I want to do that. And so they hop from course to course. If you're someone who fits that description, this may not be the best place for you right now. If you're looking for an instant return on your investment, certainly that is not going to be the case with property preservation. If you don't want to be a business owner, it's definitely not going to be, this is definitely not going to be time well spent for you over the next, hour or so. unfocused dabblers. Again, that's similar to the course junkies, just people who kind of hop from thing to thing. And again, there's no judgment here because I totally understand. We're constantly inundated with information in courses and classes and gurus and ebooks. So I totally understand. But again, if you're someone who fits this description, I don't want you to, waste your time over the next hour or so when you could be doing something that's better suited to your what it is that you're looking for. All right. So if you fit that description, we will not be mad at all if you exit now. So now we're at the point where I want to spend just a few minutes explaining a little bit about my background. I think it's important to share with you guys kind of a little bit of my story and how I have come to be so knowledgeable about property preservation, help so many people get started. So with that being stated, let's get into who is Danielle Pierce. So here's an article that I wrote, which you can find on LinkedIn, and I think it's also on Medium as well. So from foreclosure in 2009 to debt-free in 2020. So over the course of 11 years, that is exactly what I experienced. Of course, the foreclosure in 2009 was a little bit of the result of the Great Recession, which people like to call it, which happened in 2007, 2008, and also just some bad financial choices that I made, which I'll get into in just a moment. I was forced to file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy in April of 2019. The oddest thing about this, actually, there were many odd things about it, but one of the things that jumped out at me immediately was that, hey, I'm actually not broke, and I was able to do this Chapter 13. So the property preservation business was making money. I had to file primarily due to the Illinois Department of Revenue. I owe the IRS a bunch of money too, about $60,000 or so to be exact. And I owed the Illinois Department of Revenue some money as well. But Illinois was just super, super aggressive and collecting. And it was like, as soon as I relocated to Texas, which was in 2017, they just started sending me all these notifications. And then they finally sent what is it called? Notice or intent to levy, like levy your bank accounts. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what is going on with the state? I know Illinois is like probably has not balanced the budget and God knows how long, but they were super, super aggressive. I found out later that that's often the case where, the IRS, I mean, certainly they're aggressive as well, but the states, because of, revenue issues and issues with, just collecting in general, they will be very, very aggressive for money that you owe them. So they start sending me notices from back in like 2009, 2010, like, hey, you didn't file your return. This is how much you owe us, plus taxes, plus penalties, whatever. So if you've ever been there, you can probably relate to that story. So my bankruptcy payments were $3,215 every single month. Those payments were taken out of my checking account, which was insane. They also charged me like a $7.99. What kind of fee do they call it? Convenience fee for the privilege of taking all this money out of my account every single month. And so when you're doing a Chapter 13, that's how it works. If I had a regular W-2 job somewhere, they would take it directly out of my check. So there's that. So I was on a 5-year plan at $32.15 per month. My total eligible debt was over $190,000. And that, y'all, was a huge wake-up call because I just I hadn't realized that I had accumulated so much debt in my quest of being manager and fixer of the universe. So I'm gonna come back to that in just a moment. But let me tell you a little bit about my background. So I am one of 5 children. Actually, there's 4 of us now. I had a brother who passed away a couple years ago. So one of 5 children, single parent household. My earliest memory is my dad hitting my mom for being late to pick him up from work. That happened when I was about 2 years old. Pretty challenging childhood, domestic violence, sexual assault, drug and alcohol abuse, lack of basic necessities. I could go on about that, but I think I painted that picture pretty well. I became a caddy at the age of 13, which is I won't say the only reason, but the primary reason why I was able to go to college. I ended up getting a Chick Evans caddy scholarship. Go figure how a young Black girl from Beacon Hill, which is a neighborhood in Chicago Heights, is able to go on to first become a caddy and then receive a caddy scholarship. I didn't even know such a thing existed, but when I heard about it, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. So that's how I went to University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And then, as I mentioned a few moments ago, I was and probably still am to a certain extent a fixer, which in my opinion has been the worst unpaid job ever. My background is audit and accounting. Believe it or not, I got my accounting degree from U of I. And I used to be a card carrying member of the College Equals He's the financial freedom crowd. However, my American dream went a little bit like this: college degree, corporate America, marriage, job loss, which I was happy about at the time that it happened. It just shows you how ignorant I was, right? So I was laid off, foreclosure, a short sale, near financial collapse, and then finally divorce. So that has been, kind of how my American dream went so far. So back to that financial collapse. God had a different plan for me than all of that debt, and so did I. I owed $98,382 left on my bankruptcy. So this was as of March of 2020. So I've been paying $32.15 a month since April of 2019. I sent this email to, you have to get permission to do a payoff. So I sent this email to one of the people that work at the bankruptcy office. And I said, hey, how much is it to pay off my bankruptcy? And then she sent me this amount, $98,382. It's good for 60 days. Um, and you have to take this class to be certified. I guess that you maybe won't file bankruptcy again. I don't know. But that's the process. And for those of you who are wondering why it was ended up being only less than $100,000 left. So of that $192,000 roughly of debt, about maybe 30 or 40,000, maybe a little bit more. I didn't actually have to repay those amounts because those creditors never confirmed the debt that I owed them. And in a bankruptcy, at least in a chapter 13, if you owe a creditor and they don't confirm the debt and basically get lumped into that repayment plan, then the debt goes away. So that was a little bit of a lucky break on my part. I also owe $60,000 on my student loans. Again, I did have a scholarship, right? And unfortunately, at the time, I wasn't making a lot of money. I was a college student. I had various odd jobs, which were super shady. I worked at Solo, I worked at FedEx, I worked at Waffle House, I worked at, not Waffle House, IHOP, and I worked at this restaurant called Perkins in Urbana. And so I had all these jobs. And anyway, I kept, when I saw how easy it was to get refund checks from the financial aid office, I kept going and getting more loans because at the time I was just not thinking about the repayment aspect. So I racked up 60K worth of student loans as well. And I also was able to pay off my student loans. All right. So my plan with the bankruptcy was to pay off my debt in 1 year. I didn't know how this was going to happen, but I knew that I needed to invest in myself and trust myself more so than I ever had in the past. And I also had to be willing to do things I'd never done to achieve things that I never achieved before. That is a very big ask for those of you who are wondering, like, yeah, that sounds good. How'd you pull that off? So I'll share more about that. First step, I invested in coaching, which was $8,500 every single month. Here you see myself with this super fabulous coat on. I have to say, I love this coat. I got this from Rent the Runway, and I wish it was cold enough to wear it now because I actually love the color and everything. But anyway, I digress. Here's my business partner, Thomas K.R. Stovall. We work really, really well together, and he was my initial. He was the first person that I ever that asked that much money, that charged that much money, and that I was willing to be at least, contemplated, because you could not have told me that I would ever pay anybody $8,500 a month to do anything for any reason up until this point. But nevertheless, this is how it started. And so 1 year later, I was able to go and pay off this, the bankruptcy, $98,382. There's my cashier's check. That is me stopping at the office in Fort Worth, dropping this cashier's check off. This was a phenomenal day. I actually have a video of this on my YouTube channel. You can go check it out. YouTube channel is Mindset to Money, and you'll find it there. But go check the video out. It's pretty dope. And I also paid off my student loan debt as well, $60,012.65 to be exact. So there's that. And then also, I was able to be featured in Black Enterprise with Danielle Leslie and Terry Gioma, who are both incredible ladies, by the way. I'm the least highest earner of these three, but I was able to be featured in Black Enterprise for hitting $1 million from our online course, Property Preservation Mastery. So this was also a fantastic day as well. I was able to be featured in 40 Under 40. This is for Fort Worth Business Press. This is another like I called it my Danny Rain at the time. I was like, oh my gosh, everything is just falling into place. It was fantastic. And so you can find this article if you Google Fort Worth Business Press or Fort Worth 40 Under 40. You will find that. And this is actually pretty cool too, considering that I'd only relocated to Texas in 2017. So again, my plan was to pay off my bankruptcy in 1 year. It took 1 year almost to the exact day, which is wild as hell every time I think about it. That bankruptcy was paid off 4 years early. I don't think anybody was expecting that except for me. And I probably halfway didn't believe in myself. And my student loans are paid off 30 years early, I guess, when you think about it, especially considering all that they've done with the pandemic and, stopping the payments and stopping the interest. So I was able to save myself, a ton of money with that as well. So how did this happen, y'all? I did not know exactly how it would happen, but I was able to invest in myself and again, trust in myself in a way that I had not done before. And it was able to pay off. So who am I today? I love this picture, by the way. I got this taken by Marcel, who is a photographer. I think he's out of the DMV area. I have three, I call them my three baby geniuses. So first one is my shadow, who is literally like almost always by my side. If she was here now, she'd be right here over my shoulder. My middle child is a stereotypical middle child, old man trapped in a little boy's body. He is a Taurus and he's just, stereotypically a Taurus. He's very stubborn. He can be a little bit petty. You got to get the last word. And then my oldest, she goes by Kai. She's the one who knows everything. And most of the time, she thinks that she's right. She usually is, I have to admit. So those are my three babies. So just a quick recap. I'm in actually going into this is my 15th year as a full-time real estate entrepreneur. I have three companies: property preservation, tax lien investing, and online education. Today, we've done over $2 million in revenue just working in property preservation as a vendor. And then separately, another $2 million, over $2 million from teaching others about the industry. I'm always a fan of being able to leverage what you know to earn more money versus, doing more things. What you can do physically is, by nature limited. What you can do with your brain is exponentially unlimited. So that's my thought on that. I've recovered from financial ruin twice, and my focus is for my students to out earn me in the industry, which has not happened just yet, but we have had some people who've come pretty close, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. One last thing, this debt-free lifestyle, time freedom, time flexibility is courtesy of one thing and one thing only, and that, my friends, happens to be the property preservation industry. So on that note, let's go ahead and get into the training. All right, so let's get into the specifics of what is property preservation, because there are a lot of myths and lots of misinformation floating around. So hopefully I'll be able to clear that up for many of you over the next several minutes or so. So what you need to know is that property preservation is exterior landscaping. So think of grass cutting and snow removal. Debris removal is where you'll make probably the bulk of your money. So we also call those trash outs or clean outs. There's plenty of board ups to be done. Inspections, no one likes doing them, myself included. I think that they are an incredible time suck, very tedious, very boring work. Nevertheless, they are the catalyst that kicks off everything else in the property preservation life cycle, so to speak. Evictions, you'll also find yourself doing some evictions as well, especially now that the eviction moratorium has passed. Evictions can be a little bit stressful, somewhat tricky depending upon the city and state, but nevertheless, it is a necessary part of the business because property preservation is generally repairs and maintenance of foreclosed properties. And unfortunately, from time to time, people don't leave the properties either because they don't have anywhere to go or they just decide that they ain't going and you got to make them. Cash for keys, this is where essentially the bank will offer money to the occupant to leave the property because it's cheaper to do that than to go through a full-blown eviction process. And again, this varies from state to state. I can remember in Georgia, for example, like you don't pay rent in Georgia, you'll be out in less than 30 days, like evicted on the streets, completely legal. and it'll happen so fast your head will spin. The same thing is true in Indiana as well, which is kind of a northern state. Illinois, however, is the exact opposite. It's very difficult and challenging and a longer drawn out process to get people evicted there, especially once the weather turns bad. So it just depends on the city and state in which you're located. You'll do plenty of lock changes. So lock changes, rekeys, lock boxes, deadbolts, all those fall into the same kind of similar vein. And then minor plumbing, minor electrical, minor HVAC, and minor roofing as well. So, you may go in and exchange some of the outlets. You may go in and replace a water heater. You may go in from time to time and replace a furnace. And the same thing for roofing. You may do, patchwork or tarp or things like that. Every now and again, you will do a full blown roof job, or you have the opportunity, I should say, but it's not the standard or it's not the norm is to go and, replace roofs. All right. So property preservation, you guys, is not wholesaling properties. We get many questions and emails and boxes and comments about that. This ain't that. It's not purchasing the properties. Many people want to, will ask, well, hey, can I buy the properties? And it's like, well, I mean, you can do whatever you want technically, right? But you're not supposed to buy or bid on the properties even that are assigned to you as a property preservation vendor. You're not rehabbing the properties. This is not HGTV. You're not going in and doing full blown gut rehabs or extensive renovations on properties. You're definitely not doing that. You're not flipping the properties. So you're not getting the properties and putting them on the market, even if you have a real estate license. That's not what this process involves. You're not renting the properties. So you can't rent them. You can't tell your friends to go rent them. You're not looking for renters to like, that's not, none of that is involved in the process. You're not selling the properties again, and it's not tax lien investing. So I just want to make sure that people are very, very clear that property preservation is a very separate, specialized niche from all these other aspects of real estate. And the only thing that it's kind of related to could maybe be flipping or rehabbing properties. But again, your job is just to do the repairs and maintenance side and get it ready for sale. Once it's ready to sell, then your job is done at that property. Then you move on to another property in your inventory. And of course, it's not real estate investing. I get some folks will be like, oh, I want to invest in your company. I want to invest with you. And it's like, well, there's nothing to invest in. Your goal here is to gain the knowledge, follow our blueprints, follow all the steps, get acclimated to the industry, learn as much as you can, and then start working within a specific coverage area. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. And then ultimately expand your coverage area from there if you decide to do so. Most importantly, our program is about showing individuals how to build a business that they can run from home, managing subcontractors to do the required work orders. That's the general consensus of how we teach the property preservation industry to folks who are interested in learning about it. So while you can certainly choose to do the work yourself with the information that we teach you, we don't recommend focusing on that, even if you have the skill set to do it. The one benefit I'll say is that you can accumulate money a lot faster in the beginning, especially in the early stages if you're doing the work yourself. But the drawback that you can't ever get around is that you can only earn so much by yourself. You're going to max out at maybe 80, maybe 90K if you're a super, super hard worker. But it's really hard to scale doing the work yourself. So we train you how to scale your business and enjoy a work from home lifestyle. All right, let's get into one of the $1 million questions that everybody wants to know, which is how do you make money? Get to the point. So, one of the ways that you'll make money is from properties that look kind of like what you see here. This is a property with extensive debris, and you can see right here on the screen extensive mold damage as well. So, properties that look like this or that are in this condition is one of the ways that you'll make money. You'll see lots of properties where people are hoarders. I didn't realize hoarding was as common as it was until I started, working in property preservation. So in the beginning, I would go out to properties more. As the years passed, I went out to properties less and less, partially because, well, mainly because I don't know how to do much of the actual work. I know how it should be done, and I know how to explain it, but I don't actually know how to physically do much of the work. And then, as you can see, these properties are often very filthy. So here is a hoarder property on the left. Here's a property where someone left the water running in the dead of winter in Chicago and everything froze. And here's just another property where you can see on this line on the wall, on the tile, by the tub that the property flooded and then the water drained out. And so what you have left when that happens is, of course, a lot of dust and dirt and mold, especially as the weather heats up. Here's another property. Again, somewhat of a hoarder property. This property is, what's this? I think this property was in Texas. And the people left the property in this condition, and then squatters got a hold to it. You'll find that's very, very common. I haven't run into many squatters. They usually will leave once they hear or see you approaching the property, but sometimes they don't. All right, here's the property where we were doing an eviction. This was in San Angelo, Texas, which is a small town in West Texas. And here again, you see all the stuff in the property, which was left on, we have to call it leaving it on the curb. And the people who were there, the sheriff had escorted them out of the property. And then they have the option to go and rent a truck or van or get their stuff the best way they can. And depending upon the city and state in which you live, it may be the case that you leave the stuff outside for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. It may be that you can't leave anything outside. You have to immediately discard it. So it just depends that you follow the rules of the place where you're operating. Here's another property. This is a hoarder property. As you can see here, 5011 air conditioners, a couple chairs, ladder, pictures, maps, microwaves, just a bunch of trash. Very, very common. This is the kind of stuff that you can expect to run into on a consistent basis. Again, another property. This one was not so much a hoarder property, but this property just had a bunch of stuff in it that people had left behind. Again, very, very common. So these properties that are in that condition is what you can expect to see most of the time when you go into the field. And it really doesn't matter how the property looks on the outside. So as you can see here, this is a relatively nicer property. This was in one of the suburbs of Houston. Looks good on the outside, but then on the inside of the property, it looks like what you see in the other photos. So do keep that in mind. Here's another example here. Property looks, halfway decent on the outside. Inside of the property looks like what you saw in the other photos. So please, keep in mind that it doesn't matter, that you can run into anything at any time. that would be the best way for me to wrap that section up. So don't be fooled by thinking that because the property is in a certain neighborhood or it looks like an affluent neighborhood that you won't see certain things, because you absolutely can, and more than likely you will. A few other important points, y'all. You can't bid on these properties again. Technically, you're not supposed to. It's a violation of your vendor agreement with the property preservation companies. Their expectations that you're going to the properties to service them, do repairs and maintenance, not that you're going to turn around and bid on a property in which you have insider information. All right. So if you're a licensed agent, you're not listing the properties. So I want to clarify that for a minute, actually. So you can list REO, which is another phrase for means bank-owned properties. You can list REO properties and become an REO listing agent, right? That's not what this training is about. So if that's what you want to do, you can probably go ahead and exit now. But you can do that. You just can't list the properties that you are assigned to as a property preservation vendor. And you'd probably have to just work with another company altogether on the listing side of things if you wanted to go that route. I actually got into property preservation because I was not able to break into the REO listing side of things. I kept trying, and all the REO listings went to the same few companies in Chicago. It's probably still that way now, and it was just like this very difficult to penetrate aspect of the real estate industry. So eventually, I gave up and I started doing property preservation, which obviously that worked out as well. If you have a real estate license, it doesn't give you an advantage in any aspect of property preservation. So you don't have to, if you're thinking about getting your license for this, there's no need for it. Now, if you want to have your license to do other things like, check the MLS early, look for your own properties, things like that, of course, you're more than welcome to do that. All owners have to pass a background check. The owners are the people who are listed as the owners on the entity formation paperwork that you have filed with your state. So if it's you and your husband, you and your boo, you and your cousin, you and your girlfriend, whomever, whatever names are there, those are the actual owners. Okay. I want to make sure that that's clear. The background check has to be passed with what's called, you get an ABC number, and the highest clearance is IC01. The company that does the background checks is Aspen Grove Solutions. We don't have any information on, whether or not your felony from 10 years ago will be on there. If you got a misdemeanor from last year, if that's going to be on there, that is not information we have access to. I do recommend if you have any hesitations or confusion or concern about the background check, then you go do that first before you do anything else. Because if you cannot pass the background check, you will not be able to get a contract to do property preservation work. You'd have to, at that point, then go and put the property in somebody else's name. I mean, the business in somebody else's name, or just find another niche in real estate to go ahead and get started in. So if you've gotten this far and you're thinking to yourself, well, why the heck have I never heard of this whole property preservation? There's probably some really good specific reasons for that, which I'll get into now. Number one, it's not sexy. So it's very unpleasant to think about an industry, working in an industry that tends to thrive during recessions and housing crisis, right? It's not traditional. Generally, flipping, wholesaling, rental properties, and lately mobile home investing typically gets all the glory and the fanfare and the success stories online. It's not discussed. It's typically not even discussed in real estate licensing school. And in fact, many real estate agents won't even know what property preservation is. It is not free. So I do want to stress that. Somebody could type in the comments, not free. So I'm not able to sit here and say, hey, you can use OPM, other people's money. You don't need cash. You don't need credit to go ahead and get started, and then you'll make all this money. That is absolutely not the case. You do need money to go ahead and get started. And I'll break down those costs later, like the line items. But generally, you would expect to have about at least $2,000 or more. More money is never an issue for really anything you ever want to start, right? It is a difficult industry to navigate initially. There are lots of pitfalls, which I'll go into some detail a little bit later on in the presentation. But there are lots of things you have to watch out for and worry about and plan for in this industry, especially as a brand new vendor. It's not widespread. It's generally dominated by middle-aged white men, but that's true of most aspects of real estate. So that's actually not anything specific to property preservation. So that's one reason why you probably have not heard of it. Most of the people who get the contracts and run the companies and actually go out and do the work orders, I mean, they all kind of, don't look like me. I'll say it that way. And now for the question of the day, or the hour, I should say. Is property preservation truly a recession proof business? So I am always a fan of, well, I could show you better than I could tell you. So I'm super glad that you guys are wondering or asking this question. So let's look at some recent success stories, shall we? And what you need to know about all of the people that you see featured here is, number one, you can find these videos on our YouTube channel, which if you go to Mindset to Money and let's just look at the playlist, which I believe is students who've earned up to $15,000 per month during the pandemic. You can go ahead and check out the actual testimonials and listen to their words themselves. I think that'll be very helpful for many of you. And then again, all of these stories were done during the pandemic. All right. So we have Aaliyah. She is out of Texas and she had a $6,500 month. And also, what you should know about her is that she also had that month following, being very, very new and starting her business and also having a brand new baby as well. So shout out to her. Here's Joey. He's also in Texas. He is in Mission, Texas, I believe, which is pretty close to the border of New Mexico, I think, or Mexico. I can't remember which one, but he had a $15,000 month as well. And Joey's story is actually really useful if you guys go back and listen to it, because he is someone who knows how to do a lot of the field work himself. He had been working and doing property preservation work for other companies, but he was not able to figure out how to be the person that is assigning the work and hiring the subcontractors. So hearing him talk about that was actually pretty dope. So go check that out. Here's Tierra out of Atlanta. She had a $10,000 month. She also has a small child and had a relatively new baby as well. So give her a shout out. Go find her the video and drop a comment in underneath the video as well, if you have a moment. Here's Tasha. She is also I think she's in DFW area. And she was able to eventually leave her 9 to 5. Tasha is someone who works with her family. She is super driven, super dedicated, very determined, and people like that can succeed doing anything. She just so happened to be working in property preservation, but Tasha is someone who would be able to do well in anything. But again, go check out her video as well. It's pretty insightful. Here's Patricia. She's in the New York market. And I put this in here because she's someone who actually had some issues with the contract to the point where she lost or was about to lose one of her contracts. And that's actually a downside where, that can happen. Like I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that, that's not a possibility. It is definitely a possibility to hire a contractor or work with someone who does, bad work or crappy work, and then it forces you to either go on some type of improvement plan or to lose your contract altogether. But she was able to relaunch after dealing with that. And so I think that that is worthy of um, applause and respect, because many people just, when something fails, they just give up and they never go back to it again. And that's for any one of you who are watching, past or present or potential student. If things don't work out, you can go back and start your property preservation business again. You can go get another contract. You can go start another company. There's always a way forward if you decide that that's really what you want to do. Here's Rosalind out of Florida. She had her first four-figure month. And I put that in here because she also had taken a 2-year break. And she is in, I think, one of the northern cities in Florida. So not, far a long way from Miami and Key West and all those areas. I think she's near Tampa, if I'm not mistaken. So her video is also again on YouTube. You should go check that out. Drop her a shout out or a comment. Your congratulations in the comment section as well. And then we have Tracy out of Chicago market. She her second year in business, she was able to gross $250,000 working her property preservation company. Tracy is another dynamite person. I met Tracy let's see, some years ago. It feels like it's only been a few years, but it's actually been a while, maybe 10 years or so ago. We met at a McDonald's parking lot because at the time I had this addiction to sweet tea. We're not going to talk about that today. So we met, we started talking. Tracy is a great personality and she is a serial entrepreneur. We ended up working together, and then she decided to go ahead and start her own company. And the rest is history. Tracy's actually flipping properties right now, which I think is incredible. So Tracy, if you're watching this or if you see this, congratulations and shout out to you and your husband, Ray, for being just, y'all are dope. Yeah, y'all get it done. So, and then we have Norris. She is in Illinois, but, not Chicago, more of a rural area. So a bit towards the southern part of the state, like Kankakee, that area. And so she had a $15,000 month as well during the pandemic. So shout out to Norris. She also recruits her family to assist her as well. And you'll really like hearing from her because she has a phenomenal backstory as well. And again, she's very driven. She's very determined. She has a lot of ambition, and she is going to, find a way that needs to be made. All right. So that wraps up a snippet of our success stories. Again, you can find the actual videos and hear from the people themselves on our YouTube channel. Again, that YouTube channel is under Mindset to Money. One of the things that I think is very important for you guys to be aware of is that there is a range in terms of the income potential that is available with being a property preservation vendor. And I'll get into that right now. So, of course, it's definitely possible to achieve six figures, multiple six figures within the industry within 12 to 18 months. However, everyone does walk a very different path. Some people do not want or need six figures from a property preservation business. Some folks already earn six figures, to be quite honest. So they're looking for a way to keep doing what they're already doing on their 9 to 5, and then also have a business that allows them to bring in some additional revenue or income, and then, not necessarily disrupt what they're currently doing. So that's the case for some people as well. And then again, some folks are just looking for a way to pay for extra things like private school or college or daycare, which is exorbitant for many people around the country as well. For some people, actually many people, an extra $2,000 per month is life-changing money. So think about it this way. If you are someone who makes, I don't know, $50,000 per year, right? Which is probably an average or median income for the US. If you make an extra $2,000 per month, that's $24,000 per year. That is almost a 50% raise. And last time I checked, jobs are not handing out, sometimes they're not handing out any raise, let alone a 50% raise. So that is the way that I want you to think about, property preservation. If you decide to go forward with it, is that, you could maybe manifest an extra $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 per month. And that could be the catalyst to jumpstart you're doing other things that you actually want to do. So keep that in mind. You could pull this off with just one or two contracts. So specifically covering one county, two counties, or three counties. I recommend no more than three counties that are adjacent to where you currently live in order to, when you're first getting started. So here's some more testimonials to drive home this point as well. So here's Donnie. Donnie is in the Chicago market. Donnie had a $50,000 winter season. So it was actually 2 months that he pulled this off. This is on our YouTube channel as well. Donnie is someone who had a 9 to 5, was laid off. I think he says there were some issues going on at the job. He decided to go ahead and finally get started in property preservation. This was a couple of years after he registered, and he was able to, knock down $50,000 over the course of a very snowy winter season in Chicago, which happened, I guess, last year or whatever. Here's another student. And I like this testimonial because this is from our alumni group, which for those of you who decide to go ahead and join the program, once you secure your insurance and set up your business, you'll be added to the alumni community. And here's where people share best practices and wins. And I'll show you that in just a second. But here's a student, Jennifer, and she was basically talking about inspections. Remember I said inspections are boring and people think they're a waste of time and they're like super tedious. And so she says, I actually love them. We negotiated more money. We do 50 to 90 inspections a month. This pays our insurance and allows us to slowly learn more and build the business along the way. So she said that it's a win. So I do like that perspective a lot because it is a way of basically making lemonade out of lemons, right? Here's another student. This is Norris, and she was talking about doing inspections and how she was able to navigate or negotiate, I should say, $50 to $100 per inspection as opposed to $20 per inspection. And she was able to do that because where she lives, there's not that many vendors. She does great work. She's efficient. She is on time. And once you have those things, you can command more money. The one thing I want you guys to take away from this presentation, if nothing else, is that you have the ability to command more money at your will. You simply have to ask for it. And number one and number two, be worthy of it. So what do I mean by be worthy of it? Get the work done. Do it on time. Don't complain. Don't always ask for extensions. Be someone that the vendor coordinators, these are the people who assign the work orders typically, be someone that they can count on and they will flood you with work. They will throw work your way because just like any other industry, most folks who are in property preservation, I should say not most, but a high percentage of folks in the industry are just doing the bare minimum. And when you do the bare minimum, when someone comes along who is doing exceptional work, you're going to lose your spot. Next up, I want to cover what specifically do you need in order to get started. So here's the section where you may want to take some screenshots, write some notes, send yourself an email, whatever thing you do to remind yourself of things that are important to you. Go ahead and get ready to do that now. So first you need general liability. Actually, I should back up. You need to set up an entire company. We walk you through that inside of the course. So the company, ideally you'll have a website, a phone number, email address. You'll have a DUNS number, tax ID number, business bank account, all of that stuff. All of that information is actually included in the course. Once your business is 100% set up, then you will need to go ahead and establish general liability insurance, professional liability insurance. Professional liability is also called errors and omissions insurance, workers' comp. So depending upon the state in which you live and the company that you get your contracts with, you may be required to obtain workers' comp insurance. So some states have an exemption for companies that only have independent contractors, so 1099 workers as opposed to W-2 employees. So if you live in a state like that, you may not need workers' comp insurance. If you live in a state that requires workers' comp no matter what, which is, I think New York is one of those places, then you'll be tasked with obtaining workers' comp, and we'll give you some resources to do that inside of the program. Outside of that, there's certain companies that require workers' comp, regardless of any state exemptions that may be in place. There's just a handful of companies that do that. In the beginning, I typically will tell our students to just apply and work with those companies that don't require workers' comp, assuming you live in a state that has an exemption. Industry knowledge, so insurance requirements, bids, pricing for bids, bid submissions, bid approvals, things like that. That's necessary in order to get started. The ability to follow an exact step-by-step blueprint, which is what we provide, starting with setting up the actual business. $2,000 in hard costs to start your business. So that breaks down as, $500 to $800 for your insurance down payment. That could be I don't think it'll be higher than 800, but it could be substantially lower. It just depends upon, again, city and state. Insurance depends on your credit, your zip code, your prior insurance claims, your prior history with that insurance company, and a whole bunch of other things, very similar to like a FICO score. We don't know exactly what's included or how they come up with the rate that they're going to give you. I've had some folks who are able to get started with insurance policies by paying like $100 or $200, and other folks who get charged with $1,000 or $800 for a down payment. So it just really depends upon the factors that I just outlined a few moments ago. Outside of the insurance requirements, you need to build your website. That's a couple $100, including buying your domain name and paying for hosting, setting up email. Maybe that's, $200-300. And then from there, you'll need to go ahead and possibly get your first set of locks and lock boxes and minor tools like stuff to do winterization. That'll be a couple $100. And so, and then tax ID number, that's free. DUNS number, that's also free. But there's just a lot of, minor costs in the beginning that again add up to about $2,000. So you could end up spending a little bit more or a little bit less, but of course, more money is never going to be a bad thing. So if you can accumulate more to get started, I recommend doing that. If you're going to be doing this part-time, 10 to 15 hours per week. If you're full-time, 25 or more hours per week. Now, just to be clear in the beginning, everybody is kind of part-time unless you are somewhere where there's no vendors and there's a bunch of work and you get flooded with work. I have seen that happen a handful of times. And for the most part, these companies are filling you out. They're not going to flood you with work because they don't want to risk you getting a bunch of work orders, deciding that, you know what, I'm not doing this. And then they're on the hook for getting all this work done and finding another vendor to take care of it. All right. So in a nutshell, you pick your territory to cover. I recommend the county in which you live in 1 to 2 adjacent counties. So some folks like to get real ambitious right out the gate, like, oh, I want to cover whole state of Texas. Highly, highly don't recommend that you do that, right? For one, Texas is a huge state. You can drive 14 hours and still be in the great state of Texas. The same thing is true for places like Florida, 13 hours to get from Miami to maybe Tampa. So I don't recommend covering expansive territories like that in the beginning. I do recommend that you pick 1 to 3 counties. So after you select your territory, the servicing company, again, the property preservation company, is going to hire your company to complete various repairs and or maintenance at the property. So they'll say, hey, this is in your territory. This property, looks like there's squatters that have broken in. Can you go back and board the property up? Hey, this property, somebody complained that the tree was encroaching onto the neighbor's property. Can you go and give an estimate to chop the tree down? So these are the types of work orders that you can expect to receive. Everything is assigned to you via email. So if you're someone who is not tech savvy, you don't like computers, you ain't gonna like this. The servicing company pays your company. So most people will say things like, oh my gosh, well, if I'm hiring contractors to do all the work, then how am I going to earn any money? And the answer to that in a nutshell is capitalism, right? So if you're someone who owns, let's say you own your own company right now, right? You get contracts to go out and do notary work, right? You pull a contract that's $25,000 for 3 months, right? Your job then is to go out and hire people to go assist you or to carry out the actual work by themselves. And you'll pay them obviously less than $25,000. So essentially you as the creator of the company, the organizer, the overseer, the administrator, you are taking a percentage of all the work that comes in, most of the work that comes in order to go out and hire contractors to get the work done. So it is the work order comes from the property preservation company at one price. You then turn around and create a price sheet and decide to how much you're going to pay for that work order to be completed, and rinse and repeat over and over and over again. So that is how you're going to make money. So again, you have to create a company to do this. You'll then turn around and obviously pay your subcontractors. And the best approach, I think the best approach is to outsource from the very beginning. Um, we don't recommend doing the work yourself, even if you can do so. And again, that's primarily because you're going to tap out at some point. It is very challenging and hard to be running all around, various cities and counties and towns trying to do work by yourself as a one man or a one woman show. All right. We do recommend that you require your contractors to have their own materials and supplies and method of transportation. In the early days, I got caught up in, oh, we'll pick you up from work. You need a ride? Oh, we'll drop you off at work. You need a ride home? You don't have your stuff? We'll go and buy the stuff for you and supply it. We'll give you the lawnmowers. We'll do all these things. And the issue you run into is that people 100 times out of 100 times will always take much better care of their equipment than they will of yours. So we'd always have lawnmowers that were broken because they would be careless about running over branches and other debris and other things that are in the yard. um, Snow blowers would stop working because they would be very careless about not making sure that that they were getting rid of snow and it wasn't just a bunch of ice. So lots of things came up, broken, missing, stolen. So quickly, revamp that approach to, what, you got to have your own stuff in order to get started. And we'll just tell you, where to go to get the work done. If you do it that way, your startup costs are limited to insurance and your initial payroll. Now let's talk about payroll for a second. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, what if, I got to pay the contractors and I haven't been paid yet. That could happen. So a couple things I want to say in response to that. Number one, you're not going to be flooded with work. So whatever amount you have for payroll, it's not going to be like $5,000 or $10,000. Maybe it's a couple $1,000s at most. More than likely, it's just a few $100 you got to float for the next couple of weeks or so until you are reimbursed from the company that you did the work for. All right. So I do want to make sure that part is clear. Most companies that we recommend pay, well, there's no standard. So some companies pay on a rolling cycle once the work order is completed and approved. Others pay every 2 weeks. Others pay every 3 to 4 weeks. Others pay every 30 days. And you got some companies that'll try to tell you that you got to wait 45 days. In the beginning, I recommend staying away from anybody that's going to take longer than 30 days to pay you. And then for the most part, you're just, again, worried about covering payroll for a couple of weeks at a time until you're reimbursed from the company for the work that you did. All righty. My GOAT method for success: go the extra mile always. Only work with national reputable companies. Um, Accept as many work orders as possible. Track your expenses and revenue on a daily basis. My failure to do this is the reason why I owed the IRS so much money back in 2016, just from kind of going with the flow and I'll do it later and we'll get to it later, and later never came. And so there just came this giant tax bill with failure to pay, and failure to file, and interest. And I mean, I don't want to talk about that again. It's depressing, but you get the idea. I think it's important to submit excellent bids. Bidding is where you can really shine and differentiate yourself as a property preservation company. Most folks are scared of bids, like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do bids. I don't know what to do. You get better at doing bids by actually doing bids. And I know that no one wants to hear that. They want to be able to to be told that you can watch this video or read this book or read this document and you'll get better at bids. Truth of the matter is you'll get better at bids by doing them. So in the beginning, some of your bids will be crappy. Some of them will be things that you underbid on because you just simply don't know any better, but you will get substantially better with each and every bid. By the time you have submitted 10 bids, you will be not an expert, but you'll be proficient. And that's the goal. That's what you're looking for. And then lastly, maintain a two-tiered roster of contractors. So these are, one hand, you got the folks who licensed, insured, they have their own vehicles. They don't need you to tell them what to do. They're experienced. They, of course, will cost you more money because you're paying for that comfort and security. So you have those folks, and you also have the folks who you reach out to when you got a 300 cubic yard clean out, or you have an eviction that needs to be done, or some other major work done at a property. You need just all hands on deck. These are the folks that you find, you bring them on, and you just pay them by the day, and then it's short term work. So I think having both possibilities on hand is a good way to set up your business. A lot of people will ask the question, they'll say, well, Danielle, this is great. I can't afford this course. I think I can do it myself. Can I just do it myself? And the first thing I want to say to that is absolutely yes. I'm not one to ever uh, promote the idea that, you're going to fail if you don't pay for this program. If you don't have our guidance, there's no way you can be successful at. That's definitely not the case. You can absolutely do it yourself, right? But if you're going to go that route, I do want to make sure that you're aware of a few pitfalls that many folks have encountered along the way. And number one, subpar companies. So there are, I call them mom and pop companies. Sometimes they're regional companies, meaning they just, they cover a couple states here and there. They're not covering the entire country. And these companies either will not pay you intentionally, or they have a very slow payment process, and so they just take forever with the goal that you'll forget. But there are companies who have entire business models around hiring people to get the work done, saying they're going to pay them, not paying those people, and then going out to hire a new round of people to get the work done. So you do have to be mindful of that. The best way to avoid that is to only work with national companies. Next thing you have to watch out for is difficult work orders. Some of these companies send work orders that are 7 to 9 pages long. There's a lot of, if this is the case, then do that. If you notice this, then do that. The first page is actually breakdown. It has a breakdown of what you're supposed to go to the property to do. So maybe it's just go there and do a lock change. But then the rest of the pages are devoted to. But if you get there and you see a tree is falling over or a small tree is falling over, we want you to cut it down. If you see the grass is 1 foot, 12 inches tall, we want you to cut the grass. If you see the basement is flooded, we want you to remove the water in the basement. And so the rest of the work order breaks down like the pricing that is available on the spot for those things that you may encounter at a property. The onboarding process can be a bit tricky for some people. Some of these companies require interviews, they give you quizzes, they give you assessments, they give you all types of things. I shouldn't say all types of things. They give you one of those three things to kind of vet you, to make sure that you are someone who knows what they're doing. Granted, it's okay to be a new company. You don't have to lie your way through anything, but you will have to do more than likely complete some form of an interview process. The insurance applications and requirements can trip folks up as well. Some of the applications, some of the questions that they ask they're very non-intuitive. And so if you're not familiar with doing it, you may forget about doing that as well. Properly vetting contractors. Now, this is definitely an art versus a hard skill set. Properly vetting contractors first comes with, I think, asking the right questions. And then more than anything else, your tone, just being confident. And for some people, they have a hard time conveying confidence when they don't know exactly what they're doing. And if you talk to contractors like that, uh, they will eat you alive for the most part. They tend to not respect you as much. They don't take you very seriously. They think that they know more than you. I mean, most of them think that anyway, right? So you do want to make sure that you work on gaining confidence, even when you don't have any, before talking to contractors. Operating guides and price sheets. So operating guides is essentially how you want your company to run. How should work orders be completed? What's the protocol for doing an inspection? How many photos are needed for this grass cut? How many photos are needed for this lock change? What types of photos? So that's outlined and detailed in your operating guide. And then the price sheet, again, that's what your company is paying your contractors to do the work. And then the most important pitfall that you want to watch out for is absence of community. Community, I think, is where all the magic happens. And I didn't really believe this, to be honest, about anything up until the last couple of years or so. I've been a one woman show for many, 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 many years, right? I kind of told myself, you want it done right, you got to do it yourself, can't trust people, all these different things. But it is hard to change by yourself. It's hard to start something that's brand new industry. It's going to cost you money. All these different skill sets are required. It's hard to pull that off by yourself. And so our alumni communities and our Fast Start communities as well, that's where you go when you initially join the program. It is designed to shore you up and let you know that everybody in here is going through the same things that you're going through. If you need to vent or complain, or somebody's taking too long to pay you, your contractors are pissing you off, that is the place where you'll be able to go and people can relate to what you're saying versus talking to your high school friend or your childhood friend. And it's like, what the hell are you talking about? What's property preservation? Like, why are we talking about this? So the absence of community is a big deal. Something to keep in mind. Okay, let's get into what are, some of the most frequently asked questions that people have after, watching this information or hearing about the industry. So number one, what are the startup costs? So again, you'll need about $2,000. That will go for your down payment for your insurance. It will go towards setting up your LLC, whatever entity you decide to set up. So for some places that could be the formation, LLC formation can be $100. Other places it's 300, other places it's 500. So it just depends on the city and state in which you live. Building your website, paying for hosting, setting up your email, your phone number, all those things, and then possibly buying your initial set of, handyman keys or contractor keys, as we call them, locks, lock boxes, etc. So that's what you can expect for startup cost. Do I need a real estate license or a general contractor's license? You do not need either one of those things. And the real estate license for sure will not benefit you. The GC license could be of use, down the line. It'll allow you to get bigger projects as they may come along from time to time, or hire specialized contractors. But again, you don't need either one of those things up front. Do you have to have money up front to start the business? Yeah, like $2,000, but the more the merrier, just like anything else. Do you have dedicated mentors in different areas? We do not. So we don't, this is not actually a mentorship or coaching program. We have, outline this process in extensive detail from start to finish. We have community set up where you can get help with questions. Sometimes we do answer questions over email from time to time, but most of the time we drive everything through the Facebook group. So if you're someone who doesn't like Facebook, this probably won't be a good fit for you. But again, we're not, this isn't one-on-one coaching. This is not mentorship. One-on-one coaching and mentorship costs significantly more money than the price of this program. And in order to keep things not be cost prohibitive, this is the process that we've set up and put in place. Can you give a brief overview of the LLC process? Can I do this myself or do I have to hire someone? LLC, you can go with a company like Inc. for free, which, they help you set up your business for free. And then, of course, there's a Secretary of State, which you will have to just pay the Secretary of State's fee, which again could be 100, 300, 500, depends upon where you live. You can do it yourself for the most part. The only thing you probably can't do yourself is your operating agreement. But it's possible to set up the whole business from start to finish. Could take less than a week, for many people, depending upon where they live. And of course, you could also hire a small business attorney or a CPA or an enrolled agent or someone to do all that work for you. Then you can expect to pay whatever the Secretary of State charges, plus the fees from that professional that they will tack on for doing the work for you. What is the minimum level of experience needed to have a successful property preservation business? So the minimum level of experience is really, quite honestly, completing the course. If you don't complete the course, then self-study, YouTube, whatever you decide to do is fine as well. More than anything, though, you will need grit and work ethic and the ability to follow through. The ability to not despise small beginnings, which many, many people do. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this work. It's only, $100. But the goal is to prove yourself into where you are like the go-to vendor for a specific area in order to get the larger and more, the work orders that pay significantly more money. So there is a time frame where you're quote unquote proving yourself. Now, you shouldn't let that drag on for months and years, right? I would say 3 to 6 months max, right? Assuming you're doing good work when you are assigned things. And then after that, you should be in a position where you can, ask for more money or negotiate more money. But again, no real estate license, no GC license, no college degree required. I need a clear understanding of getting work and hiring a contractor. Do I pay up front for the repairs or does the bank pay up front? So the bank is never going to pay you up front. So I want to make that clear right off the bat. For anybody who's watching, you're never going to get paid up front. You will always get paid after you complete the work, submit the work is approved, then you'll get paid. And so in between that process, you will either do the work yourself or you will hire someone to go do the work for you. Once they're complete with the work, you will of course pay those people. Now, sometimes it lines up where, this person, let's say you do payroll every 2 weeks. The company you work for, they issue you a check within that 2 week time frame. And by the time that contractor is due to get paid, you pay them from the money that you received. Other times it doesn't line up that way. And other times the contractor will, of course, like everybody else, expect to be paid once the work is complete based on whatever schedule that you've given them. I don't recommend every week for payroll. It'll be a bit of a hassle to do that. I used to do every now and again, I'll do work today, paid today when I'm really trying to get something done in a fast manner. But for the most part, every 2 weeks is what I shoot for. And then when you bring on contractors, just like when you bring on anybody that's starting any other job, you say, hey, this is when we do payroll. You start on this day. Your first check is 2.5 weeks out or 3 weeks out or whatever it may be. So you explain all these things up front. Don't ever have the expectation that you will pay immediately once they're done with the work, because you won't be able to do that. I shouldn't say that. It's not smart to do that because you still have to review it, look at the photos, make sure they actually did the work that they're supposed to do. All right. Can I use my existing LLC? I don't know. It depends on what the LLC was created for. What does the operating agreement say? We get this question a lot. If your LLC was to bake cookies, then probably not. If your LLC was just a general company to do some general real estate activity, then maybe so. It's a better question for a CPA. What is the actual step-by-step process? Does having bad credit matter? So the actual step-by-step process in extensive, excruciating detail, of course, is inside the online program. But here I'll say the actual process is to establish your business, whether that be actually probably it's going to be an LLC. You will then get your website completed. You will get your DUNS number. You'll get your tax ID number. You'll get a business bank account. You'll complete a background check. From there, you will get general liability insurance, errors and omissions insurance, possibly workers' comp insurance. From there, you'll start applying for contracts with various companies. Once you get that done, you'll start receiving your first set of work orders. From there, you'll have to, I missed a step. You have to interview for some of these companies before they bring you on board. And then once they send you your first set of work orders, you got to hire folks to go do that. So then you go through the process of hiring and vetting contractors. Then you got to review the work. Then you got to submit the work, and then you got to get paid. So that's it in like a 60-second nutshell. But of course, we break all that down inside of the program. Bad credit, that doesn't matter. That bad credit is not prohibitive to starting this type of business. Why would a contractor work with me instead of getting their own contract? This is such a great question. And the reason for that is because getting your own contract requires all those steps I just mentioned a few minutes ago, right? Actually, a minute ago. So some people don't want to get insurance, set up a business, tax ID. Like some people don't want to do none of that. They just want to go work and get paid. And that makes sense because that's how, everybody is wired very differently. Some folks just want to, I want to go do this work. I want to get paid. I don't want to deal with none of that. I don't want to deal with no bids, no approvals, I don't want to do none of that stuff. Just pay me. So that's the reason why some folks just opt to work as a contractor, a subcontractor versus starting their own company. What are the best and easiest programs for bidding and invoicing? There's no such thing as best and easiest. It depends upon the person. There is Exact PRM, and there's also Repair Base. And there's plenty of other apps that you can download online. The best and easiest program is the one that you actually utilize. And for invoicing, most companies will have their own systems for submitting an invoice, so you don't have to worry about that. All right. But again, the best program is the one that you take a liking to and you actually learn and utilize properly. What is a timeline from start to finish to start my business? I think it can be done in 8 weeks. I think it can be done in 4 weeks, if I'm 100% honest. But 8 weeks is the timeline we offer in the course. If you don't finish in 8 weeks, nothing happens. It's just like we'll start sending you email reminders like, hey, you're on week 7, you're on week 8, you're on week 12, you're on week 16. Oh, now look, you're on week 20. Here's where we think you should be. You have permanent access to the program. It never expires. However, 8 weeks is what we allocate for it. Some folks do it way faster and some folks take way longer. It just depends upon you. Can I buy the properties? Nope. We covered that already. What are the biggest pitfalls in the industry? We covered that as well, but essentially companies that don't pay you, companies that take forever to pay you. What else? Shady contractors, folks who have no intention of actually doing the work. They just will go to a property and kind of screw around a little bit and make it look like they've done the work. And what do I mean by that? So a good example is you send them to a property to do a trash out. They take all the trash out of the property, they put it in the alley. That would be the opposite of what you want them to do. All trash has to be disposed of at the dump. And so, you could possibly, people can fake photos and all the properties, all the stuff is out of the house. So the house will be clean, but the alley will be full of stuff. And that will cause you to maybe not lose your contract if that's your first violation, but you'll get in trouble for doing that. Everything has to go to the dump. All right. Once applications are submitted, how long does it take to receive your first set of work orders? It could be same day, it could be 2 weeks, it could be 60 days. It just depends on the area, the volume. I do recommend applying with all the companies right away. I wouldn't do like one company at a time, because some people do that because they're like, oh my gosh, what if I get more work, too much work from, these companies? Well, then you just scale back, or you put yourself on hold, or you decline to work with one of the companies. There's always options after the fact, but in the beginning, I recommend applying with all the companies and just being patient, and also reaching out consistently to receive work. You want to be the squeaky wheel in order to, be first in line, so to speak. Do I need to pay for the full property preservation mastery online course if I have started the process already? You don't have to do anything, number one, but we don't have another option outside of the property preservation mastery full program, right? So there's a full program and then there's nothing. So there's not an option to do a quick consultation, or, pay for, an hour to get some quick questions answered. I don't do that. And the reason for that is because it's never just, most things are on a continuum, right? And so it's rare that someone will have just a set of standalone questions that does not come with questions after the fact, right? As you answer those questions. So there's just the full program, or there's nothing. If you don't feel like you need the full program, I certainly understand that. However, there's no option for any type of paid consultation. Can I manage this business in the US if I live in another country? It's possible, but highly unlikely you'll be able to pull that off. We get this question a lot from folks who are either serving overseas, or for some reason they're vacationing, whatever the case may be. But I think it's better if you're here. Most people don't have the capacity, the organizational skills, the business savviness required to pull this off. So I recommend that you are here. And if you are someone who is out of the country, I always discourage those folks from registering for the course. I want you to be inside of the country. Does this work in other countries? No idea. It only works in the US as far as I know. I don't know how it works anywhere else. Do I have to do the work myself? Nope, you do not. You can hire contractors to do the work for you. If I need a background in construction, you do not. However, it'll be helpful. I find this to be most helpful as it relates to submitting and preparing and submitting bids. If you have a construction background, if you're asked to do a bid, let's say it's for drywall, right? Actually, I take that back. Nope, it's for mold remediation. So you have to do a bid for that. Well, if you're experienced, then you'll know that you got to figure out the source that caused the mold. You got to get rid of the surface mold. You may have to remove all the drywall. You may have to remove some of the studs. You have to clean the air, or scrub the air, as they say. So there's lots of steps that are involved. And then you have to, put the drywall back. You have to hang it. You have to tape it. You have to paint it. So all these are steps in the process, right? But if you're brand new, you don't know, like, okay, well, I don't know what to do, then you might put in a bid just for getting rid of the mold and neglect the part of replacing the drywall, replacing the studs, etc. So a background in construction is not required, but it probably will come in handy for you. Can I work in another state? You can. I don't recommend doing that either. That's basically the equivalent of working in another country. So not quite, but close. So I want you to get good at what you're doing locally before you go branching off to cover an entire state or cover another state, right? It requires a different set of skills, and many people don't have that naturally. How do you find contracts? Great question. So you will apply with national property preservation companies to go out and get contracts. You may apply with Outsourcing, you may apply with NFR, and you submit an application, just like, I guess, like a job application, right? Only it's not a job. And they will review your application. They'll see if they need people in the areas that you're willing to cover. They'll see what your experience is like. They may call you for an interview, or phone interview or a Zoom interview. So that's the process. And then from there, if they like you, you like them, and they have work available, then you will secure a contract to cover a specific territory. How much of this can be outsourced? A lot of it can be outsourced, especially on the administrative side. However, I want to encourage you to not do that right from the beginning. I don't want you to give over control of your business to a third party where you don't even know what you're doing. I want you to learn how to submit a bid and prepare a bid. I want you to learn how to review a work order. I want you to learn how to upload work orders to whatever company you're doing the work for. All that stuff you got to learn first, then you can hand it off to someone else. All right. How can I expand my property preservation business? Great question. You can expand it by asking your existing company to cover additional counties or to cover the whole state. You can ask them where they need help at in other cities, counties, possibly other states if you're skilled enough to handle that. And lastly, you can just apply and get another contract with another company. You can work with as many companies as you can handle. So keep that in the back of your mind at all times. Is it necessary to take any real estate classes? Nope, it is not. What equipment is needed to get started if you're doing the work yourself? So if you insist on doing the work yourself, of course you need a lawnmower, of course you need a snowblower, depending upon where you live, hedge trimmer, shrub trimmer, winterization equipment, which means the correct antifreeze, right? The pink one that you see in all the vacant foreclosed properties. You'll need locks, lock boxes, what else? HUD padlocks, all this stuff you can find on the website, which we recommend, which we provide in the course. You'll need contractor keys. You'll need those heavy contractor trash bags. There's that's the basic list of things that you'll need in order to get started if you're doing the work yourself. And of course, a truck or at least a minivan or a small trailer, you may need that as well. How can I start the preservation business with no experience handling contractors? Very carefully. So you will want to start slow and steady and make sure you read all the work orders. Make sure that you spend a lot of time vetting and talking to contractors, or better yet, you could kind of qualify them as much as you can via email by asking questions like, hey, what experience do you have? Do you know what property preservation is? Can you tell me a list of skill sets that you have? What areas are you willing to cover? Try to vet them as much as you can up front so that the phone conversations are very relatively short, as opposed to spending hours on the phone talking to people. And some folks, within the first 60 seconds that this person is either crazy as hell or they're not going to work out, or they think that they know everything. And then those people, you can just end the conversation and move on to the next one. All right. But you do want to be very, very careful if you have no experience handling contractors, because that is a big component of how successful you'll be. How do I profit if contractors are doing all the work? We covered that before. So if I am doing an eviction and the total cost for the eviction, let's say I'm going to get paid $3,000, then my goal is to find contractors, hire enough contractors to get all this work done at less than $3,000. Ideally, I'd shoot for probably $2,000 or $1,800. So that's just an example that I just made up off the top of my head, but that is the idea. So you get paid one price, you find people to do the work at a lower price, which some people are like, oh my gosh, that sounds shady, but that's literally how everything else works. Like all companies work this exact same way, and yours will be no exception to that. How can I start the preservation business with no experience handling contractors? We already covered that question. I'm going to keep going. Actually, I'll revisit it again because I forgot to mention that it's okay to not have experience managing contractors. It's not the end of the world. Don't be sad. Don't beat yourself up. Don't overthink and talk yourself out of moving forward because you're worried about contractors. Worrying about contractors is not going to get you to the finish line or help you gain any level of proficiency in dealing with them. So the best thing I can advise you to do is to go ahead and get started. Get started slowly, but go ahead and get started. All right, you guys. Now let's get into the specifics on how you can get started. Thank you so much for hanging in here and staying attentive and asking great questions and paying attention throughout this process. I so appreciate it. So let's go ahead and get started. So you probably are nervous about moving forward. Totally understand that. Hesitant to drop $24.97 on a program during a pandemic. Unsure whether or not our blueprint will work for you. Convinced that you need one-on-one individual attention in order to succeed. I can tell you that you do not. No one who's ever gone through the program has been coached individually one-on-one. And we have tons of success stories, which I'll share with you in just a moment. Or maybe you're just tired of courses that don't live up to the hype. Like, I totally get it. I've been there, done that. And it probably will happen again, to be quite honest, where I pay for something and it's not quite what I anticipate. So I totally understand this hesitation as well. So with that being stated, I just want to take a moment to validate if that's any of you, if you're having any of those concerns right now, or thoughts or doubts. It is totally 100% normal, and there is no question that you could ask that will be like, oh my gosh, this is so offensive, or we're not going to address this question, or stand in line for Jordans and you should find money for this. Like, that's not what we do here. So you don't got to worry about that. Let's talk about what's included with the Property Preservation Mastery Program. Of course, you get the full access to the full program, which is 7 deep dive modules. It's $24.97, $2,497. Fast Start 5-day challenge number 1, establish your business foundation. That's typically $347. That's included at no additional cost. Fast Start 5-day challenge number 2, secure the required insurance. That's typically $347, included at no additional cost. I'm going to walk you through all of this stuff from an insider perspective in just a minute. The Knowledge Bank, $497, typical price, and it's included at no additional cost. And then our private Property Preservation Mastery alumni Facebook group. That's no additional cost as well. You have lifetime access to that group on a conditional basis. We'll talk more about that, once you actually register. And here's where we share wins, best practices with students from around the country. It is an incredible group, and I'll show you what that looks like on the inside. Quick Start Guide is included in your purchase. This is a 63-page document that breaks down all the steps. So this is great for those of you who like to read like I do. That's included with the course as well. A final to-do checklist, our sample vendor packet, which is what you'll need in order to start working with various property preservation companies. We'll give you our recommendations for bidding software, our recommended insurance companies, real world examples. So I utilize evictions that I've done. I utilize bids that I've prepared, and I put those inside of the course as case studies. Instructions on how to read and break down work orders, again, utilizing work orders that I personally have received. Recommended insurance companies. We also throw in, or we cover in significant detail, tips on hiring subcontractors, because again, that's one area that many people like freak out about. They're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I've never done this before. How do I talk to them? What do I say? So we give you some insight on that. We already talked about the insurance application assistance, and then we answer all the questions related to passing the background check, how to do it, what paperwork to submit, how to link the preservation companies with your Aspen Grove background, and much, much more. So that is what's included with your purchase. So now I'm going to break down the actual modules inside the course, and then click over and do a screen share and show you what the actual course looks like. So module 1 is establishing your legal entity, which obviously nothing happens until you complete this process. I do have folks every time, at least like once a month, someone jumps from module 1 and they want to go and apply for contracts. It's like, well, what are you applying for contracts with if you don't have a company set up? So make sure you do that in order. Module 2 is build the foundation for your business. Module 3 is insurance. Module 4 is choosing your business operations, meaning how are you going to set yourself up? How are you going to pay your contractors? What do your operating guides look like, et cetera. Module 5 is doing your business applications, your vendor applications and assessments. Module 6 is, again, price sheets and operating guides. So what is a price sheet? What are you going to put on it? What things should go on there? How much should you pay? You have to figure out the pricing yourself, but we give you some tips on figuring out how to come up with those numbers. And then your operating guide, what goes in there? What should it look like? How comprehensive should it be? We talk about that as well. Module 7, hiring and training contractors. I would say you spend most of your time on modules 5, 6, and 7. Modules 1 through 4, you'll be able to get through pretty quickly, or you should be able to. And then the last 3 are where people spend the bulk of their time. So again, you'll learn how to locate and monitor contractors so you can work from anywhere. That's WFA. 4 methods to pay contractors, including, I'll give you a hint. We never recommend paying folks by the hour, because they tend to lie. So if you're paying folks by the hours, all of a sudden, each grass cut takes 2 hours as opposed to 30 minutes. So keep that in the back of your mind. We'll give you a list of national companies to sign up with, assistance with completing your vendor applications. That is going to be pretty close to priceless for many of you. That is what's included on the inside of the course. So now I want to go ahead and do a screen share and show you what the actual course looks like. Give me a second to pull it up. I think this is here. Yes, so this is the actual course itself. Make my face a little bit bigger here. Okay, cool. So here, Property Preservation Mastery Fast Start, obtain contracts to repair and manage bank-owned homes, 64 lessons. The course is delivered in PDF, audio, and video. PDF, again, for my readers. Audio, the folks who are in their car or on the go. And video for the folks who like to watch, take notes, and pay attention before they go on to the next step. We start with an overview. We do an outline of like the principles, but behind the course, we call it the SWEAT principle, small wins every day. So essentially, there is a common theme that, you should reach for the stars, aim high, set your goals high. You should think big. When in reality, what actually works is tricking your brain. You trick your brain by doing small things, accomplishing those tasks, and then moving on to another set of small things to accomplish. And then you kind of build up in your brain a sense of positivity and I can do this. And then you are able to complete larger tasks that way by getting through the smaller subsets. So we explain that in terms of in our overview section. And then here's expectation settings and promises. Basically, here's what you can expect from us. Here's what we expect from you. We do expect you to follow the blueprint. We do expect you to participate inside of the alumni communities and the Fast Start communities. We do expect you to actually follow through on all the steps as they're outlined and not change them along the way. That'd be great. And then again, modules 1 through 7 is all outlined here. So like I said, you'll spend the bulk of your time. As you can see, module 5 is very long. So you'll spend a bunch of time here, and then module 6 and module 7. Along with that, I mentioned a 5-day challenge. So the 5-day challenges are great for those folks who are busy, don't have a whole lot of time. They don't want to read a bunch of books and watch a bunch of videos. They just want to be told, okay, what is the next best step that I can do? That's what the 5-day challenges are designed to do. And so 5-day challenge number 1 will take you through all the steps of setting up your business over a course of a 5-day period, give or take a few days, depending upon where you live, how you set up the business, whether or not you start on a Saturday. Obviously, that will affect your results. But it is designed to give you one thing and one thing only to do every day. And I'll just show you real quick. It looks like, here's a short video. All the videos that you'll see here are short. There's nothing worse, in my opinion, than logging onto a program and you got a 3-hour video or a 2-hour video or even a 60-minute video to watch and navigate before you can actually do some stuff. So here is again, 11-minute video here. One thing to do here for this day, you move on to the next step. So you can actually get through the course this way as well. It just depends upon your preferred method of learning. Same thing for 5-day challenge number 2. If we go click on day 1 here, we have a 5-minute video. That's pretty dope. And then one specific task to do, and I do recommend that, some of the steps are super easy, but I recommend you take it easy on those days because some of the days the steps are a little bit more involved. All right. Now let's click over to the Fast Start community, which is where you will land once you complete your initial registration for the course, which I hope that you'll do right now. So here is where the folks that are in this group are still either setting up their business or they are in the process of obtaining their insurance. And so once you do those two things, you graduate from this group, you go into the alumni community. But here's where I've addressed the question about workers' comp the other day. Here is where, if I go down to, here's a question thread where folks are just dropping in their questions like, hey, I have a question about this, I have a question about that. I go in here and answer these questions. Here is where people post their progress for the various 5-day challenges. So someone here says, hey, I can't find my NACE code. That's the code that kind of identifies the industry that your business is operating under. Here, someone says, hey, anyone having trouble dealing with contacting Altosaurus? This person here is stating that I got my business, I got my mailing address, I got my website, I got my bank account, about my domain, I have my business account. I just got approved today for the group. I'm so excited. I got everything done. I submitted all my paperwork. So here's where you can see folks going through the course step by step and following the process. And then I think that as you see these people doing this, you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. This person, got through this process. So I can do the same thing as well, especially when you run into those folks who every now and again, they come along and they fly through everything and make everything look so easy. You're like, well, dang, I've been in the group for, 3 months and this person has been in the group for 3 weeks and they're already leaving the group. So that's the Fast Start community. And then the alumni community is where folks share wins and best practices and success stories. So if I go to the wins tab, for example, you'll see here, this person says, hey, I bought the course on Black Friday. I've been doing inspections. I onboarded with these companies. I'm making progress. Here's someone who says, I just got my first work order. That's usually a pretty big deal for a lot of folks. So they were able to follow the course and hire a team of 5 contractors. That's a pretty big deal as well. That is Crystal, I believe. Here is Aaliyah talking about her $6,600 a month, where before she had a $525 a month. Again, this was when she was in the first 4 months of launching her business. So keep that in the back of your mind. So that is obviously a big win as well. Here's someone who says, I just finished a course. I've been applying to all these different companies. I've just had my first 4-figure profit month. That is a big deal as well. Here's a win. And this person says, I'm already onboarding with this company. I can't believe it. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your help. That is another success story. Here is Gloria talking about how she doubted herself. And then she finally realized that, well, if I can make 5K, I can make 6K. If I can make 6K, I can make 7K. And then her goal is actually to get to a $10,000 a month, which she actually did accomplish as well, again, during the pandemic. Here's another person talking about, I just onboarded with a new company, got my first test work order. Oh my gosh, this is exciting. And on and on. Here's a person talking about, don't accept these work orders at this price. Here's what I've done. Here's how I've done it. That's a big win as well, because again, you can always ask for more money. You are not obligated to do anything that you don't want to do. You don't have to work for any price you don't want to work for. You can always just say no. So you are an independent contractor. You have the ability to do that. So please keep that in the back of your mind 100% at all times. All right. So I won't go through the rest of these, but as you can see, there are quite a few wins, success stories, and testimonials in here. And it is just an amazing community. And I can't wait to have you inside of it. All right, we covered the course, we covered the 5-day challenges, we talked about the win section inside of the alumni community and the Fast Start communities. And now I want to show you one area where you can go to get your questions answered. So here's a knowledge bank. So this is, again, typically $4.97. It's included at no additional cost. And here you'll find answers to over 200 questions, which is updated pretty consistently. General questions are here. Most people have questions about actual, let's see, working in the field. So if I click here, hey, has anybody worked with this company? So I answer that question here. Anybody transition into doing private work full time? I answer that question here. Hey, I'm asking this application is asking these questions. I need help. Can somebody explain this? I answer that question here. So there is extensive and ongoing and readily available resources to get your questions answered. And it's a lot of it is inside of the knowledge bank. Some of it is inside of the alumni community, and some of it is inside of the Fast Start community. All right. So I just want to make it clear that there is support and resource that we have built up extensively, and we add to extensively over as time passes. All right. So I think that's all I wanted to cover in this section, you guys. I think that is it. Let me see if there's anything that I've missed. Oh, everything that I just explained, that's what's included inside of the course. So that's what you're getting for your $24.97, which we get that question all the time. So I wanted to make sure I spent a lot of time answering and analyzing that question, because it usually comes in some form of like, okay, so what am I getting for my money? What am I getting for $2,500? So I wanted to make sure that we address those questions here. Whew, we made it. Final thoughts to consider. We have 100 5-star reviews on the Facebook business page, Danielle Pierce. Go check it out. 100 5-star online course reviews. You can go check that out as well. 100 5-star Google business reviews. You can check that out as well. Um, 80 or 80 or 85 5-star reviews on Amazon on the book that's available there on their website, on the Amazon website. I forgot to mention that. And in 6,000 transactions, actually more than 6,000 transactions, we have only 6 chargebacks ever. 6. That is 0.001 or 0.1% of all customers we've ever had since 2016. Do y'all know how hard it is to get to be in the digital online course space, right? Offering a program to thousands of people and to only have 6 chargebacks. That is an incredible feat. And I'll continue to share that because I think that it is powerful and it is a testament to how well people feel like they have gotten what they have paid for. And last but not least, we the best. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So way back at the beginning of the presentation, the masterclass, I mentioned that there was a special scholarship opportunity only available to the tried and true mom jobs community. And so now I'm going to explain, exactly what I was referring to. All right. So first things first, you'll want to head to mindsettomoney.com/tried and true. I'll leave this up for a second on the screen so that you guys can take your obligatory screenshots so that you don't lose track of the website. Again, it's mindsettomoney.com/tried and true. And so now, again, this is decision time. So here's what you can expect on the purchase page. Number one, there'll be a full breakdown of what's included inside of the Property Preservation Mastery Program, and also what's not included. We'll go through, answer plenty of frequently asked questions so that you have a very clear, cohesive view of exactly what it is that you're purchasing. So please make sure that you read and pay attention to everything that you see on that page. The next thing you'll see is details about our exclusive scholarship opportunity available only to the tried and true mom jobs community. And then the very last thing that you want to pay attention to on that page is, and you'll receive an overview and a detailed breakdown of how property preservation mastery fits inside of our larger program offering, our larger movement, if you will, which we call Mindset to Money. So again, all of this will be broken down in excruciating line item detail on this purchase page. So all we need for you to do at this point is, again, head to mindsettomoney.com/tried and true. Again, the scholarship is only available on this platform. So if you miss it here, if you have any questions, you don't remember the discount code, we inside of our Mindset to Money team, we're not able to assist you. Please refer and direct all of your questions back to where you're watching this masterclass right now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate all of your time, appreciate all of the good feedback, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the other side. Bye-bye.